Hi, this is Kevin. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Today I'm going to teach you the very basics about backing up SQL Server databases to an Azure storage account. I've had a number of times recently where I've been around a conversation where somebody wanted to start backing things up to the cloud, but had no idea how to get started, and the documentation they were able to find just was confusing to them. So I'm going to try and strip out all the extra words, give you some basic definitions, and the very minimum steps you need to get this task accomplished. A test database with the backup file in the cloud. There's a lot of bells and whistles around that, but I want you to understand the minimum basics when we're done. We're going to start off today with some basic terminology. Azure, I'm only going to be covering Azure today. This is Microsoft's cloud offering. Right now, Amazon Web Services is the big dog in the cloud industry. Google is coming along, but they're still a small player. Microsoft's Azure is, well, it's Microsoft, so a lot of the stuff that gets released in the SQL Server portion of the world, it hits Azure first before Amazon can bring it in. I'm kind of Microsoft biased, and it's okay that if you're not, but today we're going to specifically cover just Azure terminology and Azure Cloud. Inside the Azure, you need to have a subscription. That is basically your account that gets you the right to use cloud storage, any of the tools that are up there. You can't do anything without it. Fortunately, Microsoft is giving away a certain amount of dollar amount of credits for resources that you can spend, free trials, things like that. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough to get you started with very basic things. The one caveat, if you create a virtual machine, make sure you turn it off when you're done. And by off, I mean from the portal. Otherwise, all your credits will be gone in like a weekend. But a subscription is the basic thing you create to be able to do stuff in the Azure cloud. Inside that subscription, you have a logical concept called a resource group, and it's basically just think of it as if you logically have dev, test, and prod at your office, and you have servers in each of those that don't cross those boundaries. It's just a way of grouping things, whether it be storage or virtual machines or network stuff, whatever. You could have a resource group called dev, another one for test, prod, staging, whatever. It's just a logical container. A resource, like I was just saying, anything like a virtual machine that you would create, you're going to give it a resource group name when you create it. You'll either create a new group or you'll use one you've already done. So it's kind of a hierarchy here. We started at a subscription. Within that, you can have more than one or more resource groups. Within each group, you can have one or more resources. If you're doing something that is disk-based, be it a virtual machine or in our case, a SQL Server backup to Blob storage or any kind of file storage, you need a storage account. It's not a perfect definition, but it's loosely similar to a file share on your network somewhere that your storage provisioning team has given you for your team to use or what have you. It's something that is specific to you and you can break it up however you want. Inside that storage account, you can have one or more containers. This is roughly similar to a folder on a file share. If I was going to put in a folder for, if I was going to back up 5 servers worth of databases to a file share, I would want to maybe break them down by server name and then by database name, et cetera, et cetera. The limitation within Azure is that once you get past the container, just all the files go there. You can't create folders underneath that. Uh, an access key, this really should be up there below storage account, but it's a very long string, kind of like a password, except really long, and it gets you the rights to use the storage account. And then there will be something else within the container, which is a URL specifically, and that URL, and you'll see all this. I'm going to demo this for you. You'll see it in action when I create it in the Azure portal and when I do a SQL Server backup. But the URL is specific to the container and the storage account. It'll have both pieces of information in there along with some other stuff, and that's what you'll need as your backup destination. Outside of the portal, the Azure portal, inside the SQL Server, under security, you'll find a thing called credentials. And this is a SQL Server credential at the instance level. And that is something that allows people to get to your storage account that access key was given to you before without having to have the key itself. So you could have your sysadmins handling the keys, or even your Azure admins if you have them, whereas your backup person, that if you're a big enough shop, you have a guy that just concentrates on backups. All he needs is the credential. He needs to know what it is, and you can pass that through without him having to have the actual Azure keys to that storage account. This will all make a little more sense once we get to it. What we're going to do today, first, we're going to log into my subscription because it's a test instance or a test subscription. I don't care if you see what all's in there because it's all going to be gone by the time this video hits YouTube. We're going to create a storage account like I just mentioned, and it's going to be very specifically, it has a kind, which is basically a type, and there's three choices: storage, storage v2, and blob. And I'm going to explain this several times. We're backing up to blob storage, but the storage account is not a blob account. It's confusing. That's why I'm making this video. We're going to create a container inside that storage account called blob service. It's the type blob service. We'll create the credential I just mentioned. We'll throw a new database onto my instance. We'll back it up. We'll restore it. We'll back it up to the cloud. We'll restore it from the cloud to a new name so we can actually see it go up and then come back down. And we're going to do all of this in the Transact SQL because it's a few lines of code versus a whole bunch of clicking in the GUI to get it done. I'm just, if you've been a DBA for more than about 6 months, start learning T-SQL if you haven't already. If you've been a DBA for 15 years, this is going to be very familiar stuff to you with a couple of new keywords. I highly recommend that if you've got 2 monitors, fire up Management Studio and run it side by side with what I'm doing. Pause the video while you're, looking for things in the portal if you're not sure where stuff is, or you're fumbling around in Management Studio trying to keep up because I'm talking too fast. Just pause the video, look around, make sure you know what you're doing, and make sure that I'm saying it properly in a way that you understand, and then unpause it and move along. Some assumptions that I have to make about you. You already have an Azure account or subscription. If you don't have one, just go ahead and pause it right now. Go off to Azure and sign up. Typically, you'll get, I don't know, $50, $100, $150 worth of free credits. You have 30 days to use it, and that's just based off your email address. There are other ways to get it, like through an MSDN subscription or some Visual Studio and whatnot. Go do that first because I'm not going to show you how to do that. I'm going to start with the assumption you already have that subscription. Okay, go do it now. I'll wait 30 seconds. And we're back. Great. Now, also assuming you have a test instance that is SQL 2012, Service Pack 1, CU2, or higher. If you don't, then you're going to get an error that where you've designated for the backup to go is wrong, because we're going to say to URL instead of to disk if you're used to the T-SQL backup command, and it's going to say, I don't know what URL is, go away. If you're on 2008 R2 or even 2012 RTM, this will not work. So go out and get, if you don't have that, go get a 2014 or 2016 or even 2017 Dev Edition, do the install, get that ready to go, or just follow along. But if you want to follow along in your own Management Studio, you're going to need the right version of SQL, obviously. I also assume you know the basics of SQL Server backups, the various recovery models, full, differential, transaction log, full, simple recovery, bulk log. I'm going to assume you know all of that. We're only doing a full backup and a restore from that full backup today, so you don't have to know it, but I'm not going to explain how SQL Server backups work. That's all over the internet. You can find it anywhere, and there's no point in me rehashing it. I'd love to assume that you're going to follow me on Twitter at Kevin3NF. It's a great way if you ever want to get in touch with me and make fun of me for talking too fast on these videos, or say, hey, that was great, but I didn't understand this. I love responding to those requests for information. You can also put it in the comments on this video, or if you got here from my blog or you're on my blog page right now, go ahead and leave a comment there. I want to help you get this done so you can show off how amazing you are at your job, which is my next point. And your boss will go, wow, how'd you learn that? And you can claim all the credit for yourself. Without any further ado, let's go into the Azure portal. Portal.azure.com, and then you have to log in, of course. And what you'll see here is, I could close this out and make it real basic. There's your basic dashboard. I like to have all my resource types sitting over here. I mentioned resource groups earlier. I have several, just generically named things. And I have one storage account already created. We're not going to touch that one today because I've got something very specific how I'm going to do it. To make a new storage account, click on Add. And we have to give it a name. And I've already forgotten what name I want to give it. So we'll pop over here to my script. Now I remember. They need to be lowercase letters on this, by the way. I'm not sure why Azure hates uppercase, but it does. Here, let me just put an illegal character in there. When you do that, it'll tell you that this field can only contain lowercase letters and numbers. Sorry, lowercase numbers doesn't make any sense. Anyway, there's some very specific naming conventions involved when you do stuff in Azure, so be aware of that so it doesn't frustrate you. This right here, this is very important. This is the account kind that I was talking about. You have three choices: storage v2. I honestly don't know the difference and I don't care. It's really important you don't pick blob storage here, even though that seems like it should be the one you pick. I've tried it, it doesn't work. I don't know why. We are going to get to blob later, a little farther down the hierarchy. Just pick storage here. For testing, I would pick the standard performance. The IOPS are going to be a little slower. It's going to be magnetic spinning disks instead of SSDs. Premium will burn through your free credits faster because it's better and more expensive. Makes sense. Pick whatever replication option you want. For a test, I'm just leaving it default. I'm leaving this, all this is default. When you create a subscription, you give it a name. This is the only one I have because I'm paying as I go. For the resource group, I was mentioning that is the high-level container for all your resources. This storage account has to go into a group. So you can create a new one here, or you can use an existing one. I'm going to use an existing, and it actually matches my storage account name, which is no problem. I work for DallasDBAs.com. It's in Texas, obviously, because it's Dallas. So I'm going to put this in a cloud data center that is near me so it goes faster instead of having to go all the way to Singapore. South Central US, you have lots and lots of choices. I'm skipping over this because it's not important for what we're doing, and I hit create. Now, this takes maybe 30 seconds if we're lucky. I'm blowing past a lot of features in here. It's really good to hit those little I for information buttons and really kind of understand the hierarchy in the portal language. It's not as clean as I would like for it to be, but once you test with one of these things and you play with it a little bit, you'll start to just kind of absorb it like you have everything else in SQL Server. I assume you've done that because you're here. You may also be here because you're an Exchange admin or a network admin or a developer, and there's no DBA in your shop, and you've been told to do this. And I love and respect the accidental DBA. I mean, that's all the training I do is for you guys, if that describes you. So again, if I'm going too fast and you're just absolutely lost on this, throw me a direct message or a message on Twitter, comments on the YouTube, comments on the blog. Kevin at Dallas DBAs, you can email me too. That's perfectly fine. I encourage it. All right, you saw the notification pop up. I have created my storage account. Close that, refresh the screen, and there's my account. Notice the kind. Blob storage and storage are different things. So if I click on this storage account, I come up with a bunch of stuff. It's pretty much, if you haven't seen the Azure portal before, this section here is storage accounts, blade. This is the specific account. It's a blade. If I click on something else, everything that opens up from left to right is a new blade, and then you can backtrack through them. If you close the one at the far left, everything underneath it closes as well. Just some basic navigation there. Something really important in this section is the access keys. I mentioned it in the terminology slide. These two keys here, you get two for every storage account. And there's some connection strings here as well. If you're hooking up an app to this storage account, that's what it's for. I love Microsoft. They put these little copy buttons in there so I don't have to try and scroll and catch all of it. I can just copy and it's on my clipboard. It doesn't matter which one you do. They give you two in case one of them goes nuts. And if everything just goes nuts on you, you can regenerate these keys. Now, if you do, anything that is using them or the connection strings will no longer work. So, beware. All right. So remember how I said this is it's the storage kind? Down here is where it becomes blob storage. Storage account, one or more containers. If we scroll down, we see other types of things that can be stored. Blobs, files, tables is a storage type. It's interesting. A variety of things here. But in this case, we're making a very specific blob container to hold our SQL Server backups. We don't have anything yet. It says so right there. You have no containers. I have URLs and whatnot. And I can see that it's in this storage account. So I'm going to click on New Container or Plus Container. And I don't remember what I called it. Bear with me. Did I make a name for it anywhere? Nope, I sure didn't. That's okay, because I have a name for it as soon as I figure out where my window went. We're going to call this KBH Precision 2016. Actually, that is the machine name, if I could learn to type. KBH Precision is my laptop name. It's a 2016 instance. That's kind of how I'm doing it. You can't use underscores. A lot of special characters are eliminated. If I put an underscore here, we can get the error back. It'll tell you your various choices there. You have to start with a number or a letter, and you can't have underscores, but you can have hyphens. All right, got a green check mark. Everything's good. Public access level, you have some other levels, but don't give anybody access to your backups. That just doesn't make any sense. Anonymous read access, no, you don't want those. You want private. Hit OK. All this did was basically create a subfolder. It's a container, that's its name, but that happens instantly, basically. All right, over here, go to the container properties for the KBH Precision 2016. This right here, and remember where this is. You go here, go to the properties, and this URL, you're going to need it later. We'll just kind of sit on this for a little bit. I'm going to close this and show you another way. If I click on the container name, it's going to move over there, and then it's going to open up this new window, and it shows me, you don't have anything in this container, boy. Container properties, same window it was a few seconds ago. I can click here and copy the URL. Don't really need to do that just yet. All right, I'm going to leave this alone because I have created a storage account. I have created a container. I have URLs. I have access keys for the storage account. That's all created. The next thing I need to do, because it's already time to move over to SQL Server. Going here. All right, the very first thing we do, I mentioned this in the terminology and then the what we're going to do steps. We're going to create a credential, which is over here under security, credentials. If I refresh this, you see I've got nothing. It gives you a little plus, but there's actually nothing there. So what I need to do is create one, and I'm sysadmin. It's my laptop, of course I am. And the storage account name, that is what I put in earlier. So now I need the key. That's the secret. We love keeping secrets from people, right? So we'll go over here. We'll back up. The storage account's there. We got too far in. Storage account, access keys. I don't know why I always pick the second one. I just do. No reason. We'll paste that in. Nice, long, obnoxious key. It's great. You don't want to have to pass that around. Thus the reason we use a credential. So I go create that, and then I refresh this credentials. Gives me the plus sign, but this time there's actually something there. You can't really do anything with this. It's there. So we refreshed it, and don't create databases like this. It's a test system, so all my defaults are going to kick in. Notice that I have one user database, not counting the report server. One's wide world importers. I'm not going to back that up because it's too big and I don't want to wait that long. So I'm going to create a very generic database with all the default options and just to have a shell of something to test. They're called test because I name things so very brilliantly. All right, let's back this thing up to the Azure portal. I don't really need to make that bigger. Basic command, backup database test. That's not new. To URL, you're used to using disk there if you do your backups in T-SQL. That's not terribly exciting. We know we can back it up to URL because that's what Azure does. What we want here is the URL from the container. That's the only URL that exists. So go to containers, go to this container, go to its properties, and there's the URL right where it was earlier. We're going to copy that, and I almost hit Control-C even though I don't need to. We're going to paste it there. Now, here's the part that's not terribly documented. No, a lot of it's not, but this is where we put the file name. So the URL is the URL plus the actual file name itself. So it's a test database. So test.today'sdate.bak. Just like every other backup, you can name it .bob if you want to, and it'll work. And we're going to use the SQL Backups credential that we created up here. See how that works? So it's saying, hey, let's put this backup file in this container in this storage account, which I can get to because I'm using this credential that has my access key secret tied to it. That's a lot of stuff, but it's really just a basic hierarchy. Storage account, container, file, and you get to it through keys and URLs. Let's do that. Cross your fingers. And of course it doesn't work. KBH Precision 2016. What did I mess up? Forbidden. Okay, figured out my problem. Sorry about that. In my testing earlier, I had SQL backups. I needed SQL backups, so let's go and kill off this bad credential with the bad name. And let's recreate it, which shouldn't be any problem. So SQL backup, we've already created the test database, and let's run the backup command again. You can put in stats and compression and things like that if you want to in these options. I'm trying just to keep it very, very simple. All right, look, we got a backup. Sorry about the delay there. If you go back over to your portal, there's my blob storage or container. It says no blobs found, but if you refresh it, there it is. Now, if I try to run that backup command again, it will error out because it won't overwrite this file. Honestly, I haven't tested the with init to overwrite the file, and I'm not going to, because this is a super basics video, and we could get really lost in doing a bunch of different things. Anyway, we've got this file. That's a good thing. That's what we wanted. So let's pop over here. Time has passed. Somebody realized something bad happened in the database, and they want to go get a record back that somebody deleted. Not an uncommon request. Of course, you can't get just one table, so you need to do a restore to a different name. I use test or whatever the database name is underscore restored. So what you do, you're doing it from the same URL. So instead of from disk, it's now from URL. So let's copy this, and it's SQL backups is the credential. We'll replace this, the URL and file name, make up a complete URL. KBH Precision, no dash, SQL backups, and we're going to move, because we're doing a side-by-side off the original, we have to move the two logical files, test and test log, to test restored. That really, for consistency, should say log there. So we're going to restore as this from there with this credential, move some files around, cross your fingers. And we have a restore. We go over here and refresh, and there's the test restored database. That's it. It's not really complicated. I messed it up a little bit in the middle there, but if nothing else, it gave you, a little bit of troubleshooting that you can do when you do see an error. You see a 403, you've got a security problem. It's not unlike a operating system error 5 access denied when you just simply don't have permissions. In my case, I didn't have them because I was giving it a bad credential. Back to that, I had created this credential was correct, but the storage account that I created for you was backup. I had previously used backups. Spelling counts, capitalization counts. If you put a capital S in here, that storage account doesn't exist because it can't. They don't allow uppercase letters. So you have to be careful when you're copying and pasting some things around. Now, if somebody else was going to come in and do backups on this system, all they need is the name of this credential to do it, assuming they have the rights to do backups. And that, a straight up user in a database that is just read only, it's not going to have those rights. But assuming all the other normal SQL Server permissions, this is how you do it. And I believe that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, I know I've said it a couple times already, please leave me some comments, hit me up an email, hit me up on Twitter, whatever. I'm approachable. I'm nobody special, so you can just talk to me anytime you want throughout the day. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can, which is usually going to be pretty quick. I have other basics videos in this YouTube channel if you want to check them out. Installing the OLA scripts, what do you do when your log file is 50 gig and your database is 500, basic troubleshooting for accidental and new DBAs. I love it. If you've got a topic you want to see, put it in the comments, send me an email. If it's something I know well enough to do a video on, I'll be happy to put it out there. Y'all have a great day.